Madison in Stevenage. Good evening.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, so I'm on my way back from my sister's wedding, and my parents paid for her catering to be done. And so what has happened is the food has come out. It's not what was advertised nor expected. And I'm just wondering what sort of advice I could give to my parents in regards to getting some of their money back.
Okay, how many people at the wedding?
I think there was about 60 to 70.
Do you know how much they paid ahead for the food?
I think they paid in between 1,000 and 2,000.
For 60 people?
Yes.
So, assuming that's £1,500, the midpoint, that's £25 ahead, yes?
Yep.
Okay, that doesn't sound like five-star catering to me in the nicest possible way. How did the food fall short?
So the pizzas were small. They fit on sort of a paper plate. And the dessert was...
What were they expecting?
They were expecting
China plates?
full pizzas and a full sort of grazing platter. Now, the grazing platter didn't feed everyone, and the pizzas were small pizzas. And again, people only had a couple of slices. And the dessert was, I think, advertised as quite a few metres. And the platter that they were given was only a few centimetres. And my mum had to leave for an hour and a half to go to the nearest Tesco's and buy dessert foods.
Okay, that's quite bad.
Yeah.
So it's not about the size of the pizzas, is it? It's about there wasn't enough food.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to get hung up on details, but the stuff about the size is a red herring, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just there wasn't enough food. Now, I'm not suggesting your parents did this, Madison, but sometimes at weddings, in order to keep the cost down, people underestimate the number of guests. They might tell the caterers 40 guests, not 60.
Now, see, I heard my sister talking to the woman who was in charge, and my sister said to them, yes, I ordered originally for 45, but I had paid and increased that to 50 or 60, because I think a few people left in between. So the pizzas were sort of at dinner time, and the grazing platter was sort of at lunchtime. So the grazing platter was gone by the time I went to get any food. So I'm assuming most people got a plate, but the pizzas were meant to feed about 50, and there were about 50 people there, but the pizzas were very small. You told me
there were 60.
Yes, I think there was originally 60 people at the wedding at the start, so the grazing platter was meant for 60 people, and I think it fed one plate for about 60 people.
Let's just circle back a second, Madison. What I'm suggesting to you, and I'm getting slightly confused by your answer, I'm sorry, is that sometimes people underestimate the number of guests in order to keep the bill down. And if that happens, they can't really complain there's not enough food. I'm just trying to find out if that's the case with...
No, so I don't think they underestimated the amount of guests, because I think the grazing platter...
You said they originally said 45, then they said 50, but there were 60 people there.
Yes, that was for the pizzas. So there were 60 people at the start of the wedding. Some of the guests were older, so they went home before the pizzas. So there was a grazing platter, pizzas, and then there was meant to be a sort of sweet grazing platter. So the grazing platter, I assume, fed most of that 60 people. I'd say about 10 people left, so that leaves 50 people. They had paid for 50 pizzas, which they thought were full-size pizzas. They came out, and the pizzas were small. They fit on paper plates.
Okay. What's your question for me, Madison?
I'm just wondering, how would my parents go about getting some of their money back?
Did they have clear photos of the size of the pizzas that were going to be served, or were they told what size they'd be in inches?
I don't think they were told what size they would be in inches, but there were clear photos on their sort of advertising pages.
And how did that give an idea of the scale? Because unless there's a 2p piece next to it or a ruler, how do you know what size they are from a photo?
Well, I'm not too sure.
Well, it's a pretty important question, isn't it?
Well, I think they were under the impression that the pizzas would be enough to feed what, 50 people?
Yeah. Okay.
And
so
then
look,
also
let me
sweet platter.
all right. No, please don't tell me what they ordered again. You told me 15 times. The bottom line here is that if your parents paid for food for 50 people and the company didn't supply food for 50 people, they're in breach of contract, and your parents are entitled to some money to reflect the upset and distress and the cost of the food that she had to go down to, did you say Tesco, to go and get?
Yes.
During the wedding. So there is compensation there to be had. Particularly if there was misrepresentation. I think, Madison, there seems to be some confusion, or confusion's putting it too high, lack of clarity between your parents and the suppliers about exactly what was expected, because we've got a bit of dancing around. Was it 50 or 60 people? Because some might have left, so we don't really have to tell the caterers the true numbers in case some leave. We've got lack of clarity about the size of the pizzas. I don't know whether your parents failed to ask, whether they guessed from photos which weren't clear. So there's lack of clarity here. But fundamentally, if the caterers didn't do what they were meant to do, then there's a claim. 25 quid is not a lot of money for food, though. £25 per head. It really isn't. I wouldn't expect the world for that. How much did your mum pay for the Tesco food?
I'm not too sure, but there was a fair amount of food.
What flavour were the pizzas?
There was some pepperoni pizzas, some with onions on. I think some plain margaritas.
You're making me hungry. I'll tell you what do you call, do you know the answer to this, Madison? What do you call a smiling, polite person at a lawyer's wedding?
At a lawyer's wedding? I don't know.
The caterer.
Yeah.
Madison, good luck with your claim.